Welcome in everyone to an exciting show that we have today. As joining us are Petri Kuivala, CISO advisor, and David Bedanes, our human risk management advisor, to talk about our threat intelligence year in review. We are publishing a report that has some exclusive data developed from HawksHunt, and I am thrilled to have you guys join me.
Thanks, Elliot. Good to be here again.
Elliot, thanks so much. Always a pleasure to be with you.
All right. Great to have you here. So let's just get right into this as we have a lot to cover today. So the Cyber Threat Intelligence Report is a flagship report that has been created after loads and loads of analysis from our threat analysts here at HawksHunt, and that is going to be available today along with this webinar. It will be published on the website. You can get that for free and don't have to give an email or anything, although if you would like to get a PDF version, you can also download a copy as well. So we will be talking about AI and the threat landscape. We will be talking about our fresh findings and insights, and we'll be talking about how to stay safe in the age of AI attacks and all sorts of other attacks, which might be kind of surprising to you or not necessarily driven by AI. So let's get started. Let me throw this to Petri first off. So what about this particular report do you think really stands out, and do you think that our audience should really pay some mind to?
Yeah. Let's start first from the fact that what is really standing out here and why this webinar is interesting is that we are not talking about the generic kind of stuff that you can see anywhere, but we have actually analyzed about 400,000 emails that went through the filtering layer. And we have analyzed actually why they went through the filtering layer, what were the intentions, and what are the changes in the landscape that we have been seeing. And without yet spilling all the beans, let me just say that spelling is not anymore the big thing. Context is not necessarily anymore the same thing as it used to be. And the main thing is that you get your people in large crowds supporting you to detect, because the people brain in masses is still bloody damn good. But anyway, let's get moving.
I totally agree, Petri, on this. And one of the things that we're going to show you in the threat intelligence report is that we have a tendency as people to sort of chase the newest and brightest object when it comes to cyber threat intelligence. And for a lot of folks, that has been deepfakes, right? And deepfakes are the things that it's the shiny new object that people are determining how to protect yourself against. And while we certainly will cover that, and we'll go into some exciting and innovative new deepfakes, the real defense and the real concern that we need to build our defenses against are truly like social engineering campaigns that leverage all kinds of different technologies to impact your potential users. So that's where a typical attack is taking place, and we want to provide you some real data and analysis on that.
Yeah, thank you. That's certainly an important thing to remember as people look at the data that we'll be going through here today. So as an overview, as we look at the findings that we have from analysis of all of the attacks that have slipped past the filters and have been primarily reported by users of HawksHunt, we see a lot that's going on here. We don't see a lot of stuff with deepfakes, although we do see that there have been some changes that have been propelled by generative AI. As you take a look at this, Petri and David, what stands out to you?
Well, Elliot, first off, the volume is quite impressive, right? One of the reasons we're able to put together such an impressive cyber threat intel report here is that we have such great information across all these things that get past our filter. Look, we just have to understand sort of the sophistication of these attacks and sort of the impact. And we're going to get to more of the impact later. These attacks are happening at rapid speed and scale speed. And so it is incumbent on everyone to sort of be prepared for what that might look like for your organization and train your people to identify and respond to phishing attack. I think one thing I'll point out is sort of the diversity of different ways of attack within the organization. We talk here about QR codes, emails, smishing. There are any number of ways to communicate with your employees, and you need to prepare them in a way to expect cyber attacks and phish from all different angles.
Yeah, let me continue on top of that. So the main thing with this 400,000 is that, as I said, it is crowdsourced by millions of people who have been kind of spotting them out with their great brains. Then it has landed to our AI machine, and then it has landed actually to the desks of living threat intel people. And they are really analyzed by the people and AI by themselves. That's why we know so much more about the content and the substance itself. The substantial changes are at least two. Well, there is multiple more, but there is at least, as I said already earlier on, the spelling. For years, we have said as an industry that if there's a bad language, then it most probably is actually phishing. Whereas now it's the exactly vice versa. The better the language is, the more likely it is that it's actually AI written, i.e. it is phish. The second interesting thing actually is, which is even more interesting and difficult, is the contextuality. If you play with the laws of large numbers and you are sending millions of emails as phishes out, and you are trying to think that what are actually contextually interesting topics like salary raises and so on to the people, it hits the nerves of some people always. And that's why you need a larger group of people who is then capable of reporting them out. And then there's a reaction process also.
Yeah, that's fascinating, Petri. Would you argue that it looks like the AI has, I won't say have gotten smarter than the humans, but they're actually writing better, right? And maybe they need to sort of dumb down their prose to sort of match the common email vernacular that we all deal with on a regular basis. It's almost like it's a constant cat and mouse game to try to mimic the way that regular people talk in their communication. And I got to warn you, they have the benefit of time and speed and scale to kind of continually refine that. So I would imagine in the next cyber threat intel report that those attacks are getting more and more aligned with the way that we write.
Absolutely so. Maybe it's better writer than you are, but not better than mine.
Well, let's talk about this then. So people are being targeted by very sophisticated attacks. Does training actually help them? It looks like for the first time, the Verizon DBIR has found that, yes, training actually works. Petri, what stood out to you about the findings from the Verizon DBIR in 2025?
But these numbers that Aspen showed in here, they are kind of interesting, showing that there is at least some sort of improvement when you do the training. What we are not showing in the slide is actually that when you are doing the training really, really well, the engagement rate, i.e. the reporting rate, is easily averaging more than 60%, and in some cases close to 85%. And that just highlights the fact that, yes, you can do phishing exercises and simulations in a good way and in a bad way. It's a bit like a knife. You can stab yourself, and you can also use it for the more constructive purposes. So it's excellent to see that humans, if they are treated well in a positive, gamified way, they actually learn. They don't learn about those spelling mistakes, but they actually learn a new instinct of spotting something odd.
Yeah, Petri, and piggybacking on what you said there, I think the operative word on this slide is good training works. Generic one size fits all training. There's been studies shown that the impact and the decrease in susceptibility to phishing attacks can actually just be negligible in those situations. But productive, individualized training courses and training pathways that teach people to recognize and respond to malicious emails, malicious SMISH, QR codes, that actually can drive impact, as the data has shown. And this is really where you need to meet your people. The fact is that individualized pathways for people to learn, it makes a world of difference. And your people are out there as your first responders and as essentially your data points out there in the field. So yeah, good training works.
Well said, gentlemen. Well said. And let's hope it works, because there is a huge tidal wave of malicious emails coming at us now. So a couple of years ago, SlashNext started looking at just the sheer volume increase in malicious emails since the advent of ChatGPT. And there was a 4,151% increase in malicious emails that were sent. And those were scanned and caught at the filter level. Also at the filter level, this was from 2025, Viper Security found that 40% of attacks caught at the filter are AI written. So if you do the math on that, it's billions of new emails that have been created since the advent of ChatGPT, and billions of those are actually written by some form of AI. So again, there's a ton of stuff with the filter. Does that matter? How important is it that there are loads and loads of stuff that are being sent out and then being caught at the filter level?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge challenge. It's very difficult for the cyber defenders to keep up, right? Your threat intelligence, you might provide that 10,000 perhaps domains that are out there. Yet these attackers, they're creating millions of new domains each month, right? And so the challenge with trying to keep up in this, and from a technology point of view, is that you're studying last year's playbook, and the attackers, they're running new plays every 90 seconds. And so it all comes down to how you train your people and train your users to respond and recognize cyber attacks.
Yeah, I mean, let me actually say something odd here. A few years ago, the COO of a large company asked me actually that why our numbers that we were reporting as incidents in that company was so low, because he was expecting to have the kind of hundreds of thousands of even millions of attacks. And what did I say to him is that I'm not paid for telling you that there is water in the ocean. I'm telling you to wear kind of umbrella or coat when there is rain. So filters are extremely good in keeping the ocean away from you. But at the end of the day, I'm not too afraid of ocean itself. It's a natural thing that is there. I'm much more interested about those topics that flows through the barriers. How do they flow through the barriers, and what are they trying to do? Another kind of note here is that there is the 40% on the right-hand side of the slide talking about the AI written. So the speed of adaptation of AI also on the criminal side is just phenomenal.
Yeah, right. And Petri, if I were to continue your metaphor, I might say that I'm especially worried about if there are any holes in the boat that the ocean and all the piranhas are getting through. That's where I would really be especially concerned. But yeah, fully agree. I mean, if you have a ton of bad stuff that's like outside the gate, sure, it's certainly worth worrying about and recognizing it. But what we really want to know is what's getting actually past our defenses, which brings us up to the way that people get all these things sent out and sent through our layers of security are phishing kits. So here we look at the phishing kits. This is just the 101 phishing kit. Is just a tried and true. I've called them before the meth labs of cybercrime. They're portable. They're cheap. It does not take a sophisticated criminal to use them. That's why they are so popular. As you can see on the right side, they can be $60. Very easy to get them, to download them, to use them. Very simple to operate. And there's a very low barrier of technology to surpass in order to use them. But they can make who knows how much. I actually don't know the numbers, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands from a simple just phishing kit that they would just deploy those age-old, tried and true, poorly spelled, just seemingly incredibly simple phishing emails. And that's what we have been being hit with by the million in the past, or just these things that people pick up. But
if I can just jump in there on the concept of ROI, I mean, these phishing kits, as you mentioned, are out there for $60 or less on the dark web. This has democratized and made accessible the idea of phishing to a whole wider degree of audiences, right? You no longer need to have the ability to write code, right? To deploy malware packages. And with that, it's turned into an incredibly profitable, industry. And so I think about the potential ROI for someone to buy one of these phishing kits and launch a campaign against an organization. This is returns that that would be kind of unfathomable maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah, again, meth labs, just a couple of basic chemicals, seemingly cheap. Really, the product's pretty nasty, but it does make them some money. And what we're going to go into here now, just to kind of prep everybody, is that the real fear that we have been looking at coming down the pike is what happens when these things are no longer so simple. What happens when, with a very low technical barrier, just any, dumb criminal can start deploying highly sophisticated attacks. So I think that brings us to the very basic use of generative AI. So did maybe Petri, did you want to talk about what's going on here? What's happening here with like just a basic chat GPT prompt-based phishing attack?
Yeah, to be fully honest, I don't want to speak about it. It's too obvious for everyone. Sorry. Let's move on actually to the next two ones, because I believe that 2 slides from now there is something pretty earth-shattering there.
Okay, yeah, we'll get there. Let me just pause really quick on this one because I am Captain Obvious and I'm happy to go right at it. Is that, you put something into the prompt, it spits out a perfectly worded email, and that came back to what Petri and Dave were talking about. Is the problem the problem for cyber criminals is that generative AI based attacks are too good. They're too perfectly worded. They don't really resemble what a human would say or what they would talk about. So then what we are seeing in our analysis is there have been more of these attacks that also use basic generative AI capabilities, which include developing graphics and putting some malicious links or having them lead to a credential harvesting site. Almost always, these ones, particularly with these campaigns leveraging Microsoft, go to a credential harvesting site. But what's interesting is that the generative AI actually created a graphic of Microsoft that is too good. It actually doesn't resemble what Microsoft actually does in their updates about having a mailbox is too full.
Yeah, one of the reasons these can be effective, right, is that some email filters aren't able to kind of look at pictures and images. This is also why QR codes can be so effective, because you're not looking at text, you're not looking at links, you're just looking at an image that can cause the user to take a inadvertent action.
Right. Absolutely. Which brings us to the voicemail and the voice phishing attacks, otherwise known as vishing. Petri, I think you already called dibs on this slide a second ago, so I'm going to let you kick us off on this one.
Yeah, wishing is of course an interesting phenomenon as such. I mean, it depends for sure about a lot about the world where you are, how used to you are using the voicemail as such. I haven't used it for the last 10 years, so for me this is totally obsolete. But I know that there is a huge portion of people who are using it on a daily basis. You are when you are doing this and listening to the voicemail, you are obviously in a hurry. You are transitioning from one place to another one. You are trying to catch up with something that you lost during the day. And you are not paying attention so much to what is this thing, what is the context here, and that's why I believe that it actually can be pretty effective way of tricking the people. Altogether, what I would like to actually highlight of your previous slides, what you just said there, is that when things are starting to be too good, then it's extremely important that people have that instinct of realizing that this is out of the context, this is out of my real life and real day. And that's why I think it's extremely important that you train the people with the correct means so that they actually can stay up to date with today's threat landscape.
Yeah, well said. Okay, so this one freaks me out. I've been afraid of this happening for a long time since some of our top threat analysts and red teamers were talking about this. Actually, I was wrong. This was the slide you want to talk about, Petri. So I'm going to let you kick this off again.
Yeah, absolutely. And correctly said that this really freaks you out. This freaks me out as a ex-CISO and maybe in a future CISO as well. So the whole industry has kind of known that 2FA is one of the best medicines against phishing risks. Obviously, it is not actually taking care of the direct links to the malware. So even if you would have perfect 2FA, still there is kind of areas where the phishing can be effective. But what we are seeing here, first of all, I said 400,000 samples, and our analysts are seeing a new trend, something that QR code was like 2 years ago, something that is not yet in a peaking phase, but where it's actually more than a few cases only, that actually the attackers are using the attacker in the middle type of tools, where they are not anymore stealing your passwords, but they are actually stealing your session keys directly from your kind of technology layer. And if you have, for example, configured your 2FA so that it trusts the login for the next 24 hours or next 30 days, which is actually not very unusual at all, that actually means that the attacker actually has access to the environment for the next 30 days or however long is that session. And you cannot squeeze that session to be shorter and shorter, because then it becomes a huge annoyance from the usability point of view. And that's not something that you can do, because then you are actually eating the profits of the company, because you are just consuming the time of the employees. So I'm just saying that this is starting to be really scary. And the only MFA type of thing that is, of course, works well against this is the fighter alliance type of physical keys that we are, for example, internally using. But being in a large organization, I must say that the whole IT stack is not ready for these modern 2FA solutions. So you're starting to be actually put in the middle of the really rock and hard place as a CISO if these attacks become even more popular.
Yeah, thank you for that, Petri. And I could just read something from the cyber intelligence report. And again, I recommend everyone check those out because it goes into more detail about this. But organizations should adopt phishing-resistant MFA, bind sessions to devices, and monitor identity telemetry for session reuse. User agent shifts and rapid post-login changes. Detection must pivot from static indicators to behavioral and session-level analysis, treating tokens as primary evidence of compromise.
Those are nice words, but to be fully honest, in real life, really, really damn difficult to implement. I'm sympathetic to all the people who needs to be implementing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've talked about these mass campaigns that use generative AI to make everything look a little nicer. What happens when agentic AI actually makes spear phishing the new normal? How is that different? David, did you want to kick us off on that topic?
Absolutely. Like this gets down to targeting 101, right? Any malicious message is going to work best when it's personalized to the target. If they think they're interacting with a colleague or a service that they trust and that they regularly interact with, let me just give you a vision of this or an idea of this. So, with AI, they can take a look at your LinkedIn profile, read your last 50 posts, analyze your writing style, identify who your colleagues are, and generate a really convincing spear phishing email. And this is all done before you finish your morning coffee, right? Your digital footprint, it isn't your resume anymore. It's their research. And that's why this is so important. Traditional spear phishing, we've seen it before. One attacker, one target, hours of research. AI spear phishing, one attacker, 10,000 targets, each with personalized research at machine speed, 10 minutes. With agentic AI here, we did not just lower the barrier for entry for cyber attackers, we eliminated it. And that's what's so scary.
Very well said. So let's take a look at the generative AI and phishing 2025 findings. The themes that were in generative AI, they mirrored the overall 2025 landscape. So they weren't necessarily purpose-built and deployed through generative AI in order to do something totally different. And the large generative AI Microsoft impersonation campaigns use lookalike logos built from HTML elements such as tables rather than images, as we've seen in these various Microsoft attacks. The emails are often grammatically correct, but may sound unnatural, as we have discussed. And the automatic personalization, those spear phishing emails, is common, but at times unsuccessful in Gen AI phishing, sometimes leaving placeholders such as references to victims visible to recipients. So rather than seeing like your name, it might have like, dear, person I'm trying to rip off. So AI can be used for bad. Petri, what happens when you use it for good?
We shouldn't be doom and gloom. This industry has, for the last 30 years that I've been witnessing, it has always been the whack them all type of thing. We have been using AI for helping people to get that instinct that I already talked about. When there is something that people are reporting, the AI can immediately give you feedback that were you reporting something that was a simulation or was it actually an actual attack. You get that feedback within the next 5 seconds actually of you reporting it. And that's a hugely beneficial thing for increasing the motivation of the people who is participating to the training. And it also gives you the feedback immediately. That's not the only thing. we can also, of course, understand the exact role of yours, the exact competence level of yours, and the weak spots of your nature, and we design very personal trainings to you, per how you are, so that you are actually really engaged into this thing. And then lastly, when I'm saying that there's a loss of big numbers, and the attackers are sending huge amount of emails, and there is always someone to whom the context even is correct today, and they will be having the bad hair day, and they will be clicking the stuff. There will simultaneously be someone who is actually clicking the same thing and reporting it out that, hey, this is something fishy. And then if you are using, like we are, 15 parallel LLMs, checking actually that what does it look like, it can immediately feedback that information to the SOC within the next 2 minutes, basically from the attack starting, based on our kind of statistics. The SOC will know that there is something fishy ongoing. And something actually that maybe I even shouldn't say, which is not public yet, and that's why I'm not mentioning the names of the companies, but very recently, we actually had one of our customers coming back to us. They have 100,000 employees working for them, and they were testing us and the biggest players in the market, and they found out that we were capable of reporting 10 times more accurately and 10 times more in volume of those attacks that has actually gone through the filters. And that's something that when you build all this together, the helping AIs together, you can actually build AI together with the crowd, and then you are building something that no one else actually has.
Yeah, very interesting. So now we are going to get into the topic that most of the crowd here has probably been waiting for, and that is deepfakes, where seeing is not believing. And deepfakes can come in different forms. And what you're seeing here, these are actual cases from 2025 where there was a large-scale breach using some form of deepfake attack. And scammers siphoned $25 million from engineering firm Arup via deep AI deepfake CFO. That's where someone had a large invoice redirected and posing as the CFO. Salesforce customers fall victim as shiny hunters and scattered spider joined forces with coordinated social engineering campaign leveraging phishing. That has probably, if you don't remember these names, shiny hunters and scattered spider, you might remember some of the attacks that they have done, such as the big MGM attack with scattered spider using a phishing attack aimed at the IT help desk. I've actually personally heard several different CISOs from large companies talk about how often their help desks have been targeted by these types of attacks. Experts link Qantas data breach to AI voice impersonation, similar kind of attack there from over the summer. And this was an interesting one that I've also heard a lot at various conferences, people talking about being worried about, which is recruitment scams, with fake job seekers are flooding the market thanks to AI. And that's sort of a large topic in and of itself. There are several different kinds of attacks and scams that come from that.
Absolutely. Elliot, this reminds me, I mean, back of those of us of a certain age, if we would send out a note to our friends and we said, oh my gosh, I just saw Tom Brady at Jimmy John's, what would they always respond with? They would always say pics or it didn't happen, right? And that deepfakes, I mean, I don't need to tell the folks on this call, but that has completely changed the game paradigm. So the challenge with this is that you really need to teach your people just to have that skepticism of to trust sort of their instincts of, is this what I was expecting? Is this real? And just to know how challenging that can be in the world of AI.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the more interesting examples of a deepfake attack from last summer was when someone created a deepfake attack of the CEO of YouTube, and they contacted all of the users of YouTube, the content creators, and said, hey, we've changed our policies, click on these links, and you have to do that. And they got scammed by doing that. So there was a lot going on there with that kind of a social engineering attack where you freak people out because they might lose some money, or somehow they have skin in the game with some kind of a change. There's a sense of urgency. And then you have this person who how could you possibly not trust the CEO of this large company telling you that there's been some kind of a change? These things are happening. They're happening in different ways. They're attacking people in different ways. This is what a deepfake looks like.
listen, I'll go straight to the point. Here, just to the slide of the webinar we have. Let me add the link to the chat.
Uh-oh, somebody clicked. So that was a deepfake video. Maxime and I showed that in our previous webinar back in October, but he created that in a matter of minutes. And I'm not sure about you guys, but how convincing was that? Did that look like me? Was the hair a little bit too good in that? What did you think?
I mean, certainly for the time spent, it was very good, right? I mean, that's the challenge, right? Is that these things can scale very quickly. And but yeah, I mean, there also certainly were some signs that maybe you should be aware that it was a deep fake. How about you, Petri? What did you think? Was that the real Elliot or the fake Elliot?
I haven't seen this before, so interesting altogether to see it. My only honest question is that was the voice really that low by purpose, so that you would actually not hear about it, and then you would be clicking the link? Was that the idea?
I think that everything is intentional. I think the whole point is to show, because sometimes you can make a really glitchy connection, deepfake simulation, and that just shows that the reason why you need to click on a link is because the connection is so bad and to download something. So it creates
I was totally irritated by the voice, that how could it be this bad? And then I realized that, hey, this must be actually part of the thing. But yeah, anyway, it is kind of convincing in that sense. Yes, it looks like you. Yes.
So how do you tell if someone is a deepfake or real? I can put this over to both of you. What do you think about these telltale signs of a deepfake?
Yeah, let me jump to this one immediately, because I don't like the slide, to be fully honest. Oh yeah, we are currently in a phase where we are kind of acclimatizing ourselves to the deep fakes, and maybe this stuff is real today. Yesterday, I was actually making myself familiar with the newest release of the Nano Banana, and to be fully honest, that is just marvelous way of doing the stuff that you couldn't do yesterday, the day before. This is going to be very obsolete in few months, and we don't know when and where. And that's why exactly what David actually said 2 minutes ago. Make your instinct what is real, what is contextually correct for you to be able to report, make it for the masses, and then you are starting to be protected. But if you're looking into this sort of kind of transactional stuff, you're going to lose the fight.
Absolutely, Petri. So we're so focused here on how they are saying it and who is saying it without thinking about what they are saying, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it really boils down to. Is this something that's out of the ordinary that you're receiving?
Yeah.
Do you have the ability to sort of go back to this person through a different communication channel and say, hey, I just got this message from you. Was this you? So I think my takeaway here is listen, not only you listen to your gut, but also tell your people and your teams to listen to their guts as well.
God is really important.
So another trend that we have seen is that the different kinds of attacks are slipping out of email or are blurring the lines between email and social media. And this is becoming a increasingly big problem and an increasingly big concern. And there's been a 600% increase in malicious social media links in phishing emails since 2023. But it is possible that the rise in compromised business email accounts drove much of the increase, as email signatures often contain links to social media. And so they were using those as a way of further attacking people who were within that executive's communication sphere. So I don't think we need to go through these too closely, but these are two different kinds of kill chains for one goal. And the way that people will go through that, the kill chain is one is the meta recruitment, and kill chain two is an ad policy violation. Both, so Instagram is part of Meta, so we're calling both of these meta attacks. But this specific meta impersonation on kill chain one targets organizations' social media credentials by alleging account suspension due to advertising policy violations. Recipients are sent a phishing message that leads them to a fake support chat with a live agent. And, again, you have to remember, so when we talk about kill chains, we're talking about all the different steps in an attack. So it's not just that you click on something and then all heck breaks loose. There actually is something that has to happen next for you to be completely compromised. And while the attacks initially focused on impersonating social media platforms, they later expanded to target other large, well-known companies like Red Bull, Apple, Marriott, and Coca-Cola. Despite spanning different industries, all the impersonated organizations share the trait of having a well-known brand to catch the attention of marketing professionals. In all cases, the primary goal remains gaining access to business meta accounts, which is achieved by asking the recipient to log into fraudulent sites like a fake Calendly page with their meta credentials, even when a different brand is impersonated. So this brings us to this part of the story, and we have reported on this back in October a bit, but I think it still bears mentioning, is the fact that there was a 50x increase in malicious SVG codes. So still, PDFs are the preferred attachment of choice, and attachments are still one of the preferred attack methods by bad actors. I'm not sure if Petri or David, if you had some more thoughts on this.
Let me say a few words. First of all, long ago, 30 years ago, when I was a police officer, I realized that the car thieves are stealing those cars that are not well locked. It's the same thing in here. Why use a kind of backup new stuff if the old one works? So PDF stays there because people read the PDF. PDFs are somehow kind of considered to be credible, and people click links in the PDFs. Clear as that. Why would you change? Why would you need to use AI? Why would you go any extra hoops when this works? Then the SVG, I as an old fart would have easily been tricked to this one. I have always considered pictures as something that is totally reliable and static. Without actually realizing at all that SVG is capable of doing the scripting there on your behalf. And to be honest, I know a lot about the technology, but this detail has slipped my mind. So of course, they will come up with these new tricks, which are embedded into the things that people trust.
I mean, the short answer is because it's working. It's working better. It's evading sort of our defensive techniques. It's working against our people. And so therefore, you're seeing the growth in it increase, right? And that's the long and short of it.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as evading our defenses better, they do evade them much better right now. And that's what happened with QR codes in 2023. Some people in the audience have heard us talk about this before, but there we encountered I don't know, something like 100x increase in malicious QR codes because for a couple of months there, the filters weren't catching them. But then once they did catch them, the QR codes plummeted in popularity from the bad actors. And now SVG seems to have kind of taken their place.
Yeah. Interestingly, what you are saying also in the report, though, is that the QR codes have been now hidden inside of the PDFs. So it has cat and mouse, and the mouse seems to be quite clever here.
Yeah, and absolutely an important point too. Again, the kill chains can really extend beyond just that first click of downloading something. Next thing you know, you do have a PDF and you scan the QR code, then you're at a credential harvesting site or what have you.
Yep.
Let's sort of finish up today. We're rounding the final turn here into the good news. And the good news is that good training works. We started off with some good news. Let's finish off some good news. And go ahead and take us through some of this good news. What are some things that you find to be most encouraged by?
Look, I mean, I think I said at the beginning, we said generic training may not work, but good training does work, right? We need to train our people to be our best first line of defense against these cyber attacks. And frankly, they can be, right? The average cost of a successful phishing attack, look, it's, could be $5 million. This is real stakes and real impact. And so what I would encourage you to do is to think about the way that you're training your users. It's not a one size fits all. It's also not just a one technology. It's how you integrate a positive culture of cyber awareness across your entire organization, right? And use the levers, use the tools that you have to sort of make cybersecurity everybody else's job within the organization, that they personally feel like they're on the front lines for cybersecurity.
Yeah. And this comes to the psychological difficulty of people not actually being too afraid of the things and that are too common. We by nature are very afraid of things that are rare and disclosed in the news. And why I'm saying and starting with this is the same thing that I said in the beginning. more than 20% of the real breaches, the big breaches, are starting still with the phishing or similar kind of social engineering. And if you are capable of harnessing your people to report them, the best people reporting them in less than 2 minutes, and engaging your people to report more than 60% of them reporting it to you, you are on the good side of things. As long as you kind of link that to your SOC, who is then capable of cleaning that mess before it becomes a mess. So I think that we can still fight, and we are on the better side of the whack them all game. But yes, there is lots of moles.
Absolutely. There are a lot of moles. And also, just to reiterate, when people are reporting these threats on a platform that's designed to orchestrate those threats up to your SOC team, then all of a sudden you have intelligence into what's in your system. You can be proactive. You can move ahead of it. You can see how the threat landscape has changed, and then you can adjust your training as well. Gentlemen, I think this is the end for us today. So I appreciate you for coming on, sharing your expertise. I'm sure that the audience appreciates it as well. And any final words?
Thanks for the chance to be on, Elliot, or maybe you actually are a deepfake version of Elliot. So I'm not even sure who I've been having a conversation with today, but it was a wonderful conversation nonetheless.
That was a deep thought, David. Thank you.
Well, thank you both. And just a reminder to everybody, please check out the Cyber Threat Intelligence Report. It is a fantastic resource for you. There is so much more in there than what we were able to cover today. It's weighs in at about 50 or 60 pages, but it's also broken down in some nice infographics, so you can check it out at a glance. You can get deeper into it. And if you guys have any more questions, please do contact me or Petri or David or any of our other experts at HawksHunt. We'll be happy to answer your questions, happy to go over these results and findings, and happy to help answer any of your questions about developing some defenses against these sorts of threats.